Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar channel of the Association of Certified eDiscovery Specialists. My name is Mike Quadraro. I am the president of ACED. Today, we are joined by Rico, our fabulous partner, for a webinar that is entitled The Impact of Emoji. And we've been debating whether it's emoji or moji and whether it's plural or not, but the impact of emoji in workplace communications. Before we get started, please know that we love questions. We are happy to take questions. We want to encourage you to ask questions, and you can submit your questions using the Q&A widget at the bottom of the screen. All questions are anonymous. Also, if you'd like a copy of the slide deck from today's presentation, you can download it also from the widget at the bottom of the screen. Without further delay, I'm super excited to introduce Matt Mahone, Certified eDiscovery Specialist, Information Governance Professional from Rico. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be back on the ACED's webinar channel. Good afternoon to everyone on the East Coast, and good morning to my fellow West Coasters. Emoji is a fun topic to discuss, but with that fun, there are a lot of challenges presented. So we're going to go through those today from both IG, HR, eDiscovery technology perspective. Hopefully you get some takeaways to bring back to your organization. Let's get started with some history of the emoticon and the emoji. So these are not new, just the utilization and usage has increased dramatically of late as millennials have gotten into the workforce. Emoticons, though, were actually invented in 1982 in a in a computer science lab at Carnegie Mellon University. There were some chat rooms where students weren't sure if a message was a joke or real. So the computer science professor decided to make colon, right parenthesis, smiley face, thus stating the jest, and then obviously the left parenthesis would be the frown, and thus the emoticon was born. Then 17 years later, in Japan, 1999, the emoji was invented. Obviously, they didn't have the dictionary and the amount of emojis we have now, but emoji has now been around for 21 years. I'll give you some historical context. Now, this slide, I'm convinced, even though it says on the left that emoji were in 1995, pretty confident that emojis were invented in 1999, but this still gives you a great little historical context of how emojis have grown, and the amount of emojis that are available to be utilized has grown year over year, and really since 2010, where you saw a dramatic increase over 2009. So a little controversy. In 2015, Oxford Dictionary had the tears of joy or face with tears of joy emoji as word of the year, not the word emoji itself, but the actual pictograph. So for some language enthusiasts, they had a big issue with this. But again, shows the popularity and the amount of utilization. This is the most utilized emoji in the world, and thus Oxford Dictionary gave it the word of the year. And then just recently, in the state of Vermont, they've proposed a bill to allow emojis on license plates. Now, at this time, those emoji would not take place of any characters such as alpha or numeric characters on the license plate. It would just be an additional picture that you can choose. They haven't chosen which actual emojis are potentially available for these license plates. Again, people want to display emotion in their favorite emoji on their vehicles, and this bill would allow that to happen. So I mentioned earlier about the increased usage of emojis. So in 2016, there was 2.3 trillion, mobile messages that had emoji. And 73% of the connected population who use emoji out of them, and 33% of them use emoji in the workplace. So that was 2016. You could start really seeing the growth of workplace emoji usage take off. And then now in the recent study in 2019, they're saying 92% of the connected population utilize emoji, up from 73%, and with 61% of those utilizing emoji at work. So definitely, you probably see it all in your workplace. You see communications, you may utilize them. I ask when I give this presentation, show of hands of who utilizes emoji at work. I think most people are honest. I think some people are shy about it. It's okay. We'll talk about that more later on, but it's definitely increasing and it's becoming more of the norm. So how are they being utilized? 61%, again, using emojis at work, and 36% of those only use them with people at their own level. 13%, everyone, regardless of the level. 12% only in internal facing communications, and 4% in external facing communications. I feel like that 4% seems a little bit low, but I would definitely see that number be growing over time. So something to take a look at. Favorite emojis. I found this very interesting about the favorite emojis via by gender and also by geographical region. So females, everyone likes the tears of joy emoji. That seems to be the favorite amongst men and women, and also amongst all regions of the United States. Women enjoy the heart emoji and the kiss emoji. They utilize that more. Where men use the smiley with the teeth and then the crying emoji, which I thought was interesting. Northeast, again, you see the heart and then the crying. Not sure why that's the case. The South, you have the smiley face with the heart eyes and the kiss. Maybe they're more affectionate in the South, and that's why in that region, those are the favorite and most utilized. In the Midwest, smiley face and the heart. In the West, we've got the thumbs up that makes the top three. So interesting to see what emojis are favored and utilized by the geographic region. I think it'd be also interesting to see if it was by country. I'm sure you'd see some larger variances there. So let's get into some examples of where this could be a challenge at work, and then also in a discovery perspective. So this is a great blog that Barnes and Thorburn put out about 5 years ago, actually, but still very relevant today. So if you look at this email, seriously, James called off again. What's the deal? Why does that surprise you? Handicap emoji, handicap emoji, handicap emoji. So utilizing 3 handicap emojis really is put an exclamation mark on it by having multiple of the same one. And as you can see, this would be an issue in terms of discriminatory lawsuit if this document was produced. But in the past, we've had some challenges with technology not catching up with emoji, where maybe the emoji wouldn't be captured. It would be captured in a screenshot, captured in a print, but if you utilize some collection technology, those emojis may be missing, or you might get some question marks if it's not supported. And what would that look like? Well, if you're reviewing this email and you say, need coverage for James, seriously, James called off again, what is the big deal? Why does that surprise you? With no emoji, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. So imagine if that's a document that was reviewed and then produced to opposing, but then the plaintiff came back and produced the actual email with the emoji incorporated. So really important to understand how emojis are utilized in the workplace, where they are, and in your collection strategy to ensure you get them, because it definitely can change the overall meaning and tone of the document. Another example would be a text message string. Todd's leave is up tomorrow. I don't think he's going to be able to return right now. What should we do? So the game controller emoji followed by the no sign. That is game over. That's what that means. So, okay. So if he doesn't return, we terminate. Thumbs up, yes. So really no considerations in the FMLA to extend the leave, see if he's going to come back. Any sort of a communication with Todd, just, hey, he doesn't show up tomorrow, we're going to terminate him. Again, could be an issue. But one thing we'll bring up as a common theme in this presentation is, are people more liberal with the language that they use if they're utilizing it via emoji versus what they might actually use in text? And that might be a concern and a risk for organizations. Another example, Mary came into my office today. Apparently John is making suggestive comments about something she was wearing yesterday. Can you please look into this? I'll be out on vacation until next week. Are you kidding me? She complains about everything. Yeah, I'll look into it. Painting nails emoji. So emoji aside, are you kidding me? She complains about everything. Yeah, I'll look into it. Probably not the best response regarding an HR investigation. But you add the paint nails emoji, which really means I have better things to do. Just even double down on not an appropriate professional response and someone that's really showing care into this investigation and it seriously. So again, could be an issue if there is not a full investigation here. This email would be damaging. So another thing that was introduced with emoji were the skin tones, which could be problematic depending on how they were utilized. The positive news is with some of the, there was a investigation, a research on over 1 billion tweets and how the different skin tones were used. And for the most part, it showed social inclusion. It didn't show any sort of discrimination or racism, which is good. So that was the idea behind having different skin tones, but another variable when doing an investigation or looking to, hey, is a different skin tone emoji utilized when speaking about a certain group of individuals. New emoji in 2019, as you more in 2020. One big challenge here is the list continues to grow. So as you may think you have a handle on the common emojis out there, it continues to grow. And how do you really understand the true meaning or the urban dictionary meaning and how the employees and people are communicating and what these emoji mean? If you also have a passion for a certain emoji and you want to go to Unicode Consortium to try and get an emoji put in place, you can do that. That's where the one-piece swimsuit came into play. One mother did not like the only swimsuit depicted by a bikini, so she fought for the one-piece, and there it is. So now we have bikini and the one-piece swimsuit. But you have all types of new emojis coming in every single year, and they take on different meanings, which we'll get to later on in this discussion. I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but again, new emojis coming in, how are they utilized? Are people feeling harassed, uncomfortable with how certain emojis are being used? And if people are more liberal in their language and feel like they can say something via emoji they can't say via text, that could be a risk in terms of harassment lawsuits. So world's first emoji translator. So this is out of a consulting firm in the UK. And for the most part, he consults with companies when utilizing emoji on marketing, how emojis are displayed across different platforms, which we'll later, what their meanings are in different geographies and countries. To date, it has not been about really litigation and eDiscovery and doing a certified translation of documents. And to date, the case law, fortunately, has said, let the jury decide. So the jury gets to actually read the emojis and decide what they mean. So to date, we don't need a certified translation of an emoji document, which I think is a positive thing. But as people continue to communicate and there's a more complex utilization of emojis, that might be necessary. So we'll just kind of go through an example of some translations so you can get an idea of how emojis can be grouped together to create sentences or statements. Actually, even in 2015, the Chevrolet, when they brought the Chevy Cruze, their first announcement was all in emoji, and then they released an English version later. Obviously, they were trying to market to a younger crowd. So you can see what some of these can mean as you do combinations of emojis. And not all combinations have meaning, which we'll get into in one of the cases later on. It could just be a random string of emojis as well. But these all have specific meanings. So here's another one. If you're reviewing documents or you're looking at text string, you see someone send a text to somebody else about coffee and a bunny rabbit and a dog. This could get overlooked. And I think it's really important for reviewers to not overlook emojis and what the meanings may be. Don't take it for granted that, oh, it's just a bunny and a dog, and maybe they just thought they were two cute animals and they added them to their coffee text. In this situation, it actually means hair of the dog. So you put the bunny, rabbit, and the dog together. And so instead of really going to Starbucks, maybe these individuals are going to the Star Bar and getting an Irish coffee versus a Pike. So again, look at the emoji, look at the whole statement, and go, hey, I wonder if those mean something. Just question. You can do an investigation. There's different ways to look what emojis might mean. Twitter's a great way to put an emoji in there and search for tweets that contain that emoji so you can understand how that emoji is being utilized in the general public and maybe get a better understanding of what it might mean and what they're trying to convey. So another challenge with emoji is across platforms, emoji display differently. So a text that you may send if you have an iPhone and someone else has an Android, it may display differently. So one thing to note, just because what you received might not be what was actually sent. So here's an example. This was back actually when we were on Lotus Notes, which was, I'm glad we've moved forward and on from that. But it shows even from Lotus Notes to iOS to I had a Galaxy phone. So this message was sent from an iPhone. What I received here on the Lotus Notes, it looks sort of like a smiley face with a sleeping mask and a sideways smile and a thumbs up. Not sure if that's a positive tone or what that's trying to convey. As you can see, it was sent from an iPhone. At the time, the one device I had that actually had both work and personal stuff collide was the iPad. We usually have a separation of devices. So from one iOS device to another iOS device, you can see the smiley with the sunglasses, the cool smiley face, and the thumbs up, which from iOS to iOS device, that's probably what was sent and then what was received on the iPad. On the my work phone, Samsung Galaxy Preview, you could see another sunglass smiley face, but the eyebrows are slanted. Maybe this person is mad. Looks very different than the smiley on the iOS, and a thumbs up. Looks a little bit different, but still a thumbs up. Then when you actually opened up the email on the Samsung Galaxy, there was no message displayed at all. It was completely blank. So as you can see, 4 different ways of viewing this communication, and imagine if the email was collected off of my phone itself, and there's no message, it's just a blank message instead of the emoji being displayed. So definitely a challenge and something to take into account when you're looking at emoji is, hey, what device was it potentially sent from, what was received, and do they match? And some marketing mishaps that had occurred because of this as well. As you can see in the lower right, the display of a chocolate chip cookie across different devices. So with the Unicode Consortium, there is some standardization of, okay, well, this is a chocolate chip cookie, but with IP and everyone having their own emojis, they display the pictograph differently. Google's, I'm not really sure if I didn't know that was a chocolate chip cookie, if I thought that would be one. Microsoft looks sort of like a pizza. Samsung, saltine cracker, not really sure why that was the case. But when they made or the tweet sent out on World Chocolate Day for the Cookie Monster, along with the tweet was a saltine cracker versus a chocolate chip cookie. So looks a little silly, and this is why that emoji, the world's first emoji translator, some marketing companies utilize him as a consultant so they understand how emoji may be displayed across platforms and, again, what the meaning might be in different geographical regions. More challenge with marketing and why it's important to have the proper policies in place and what emojis can be utilized with marketing. There have been studies that have shown that messages and emails that contain emoji have a better click-through rate and are viewed, which is great, but they need to be used in an appropriate manner. So in this situation, the Houston Rockets were playing the Dallas Mavericks, and they were winning. And towards the end of the game, the tweet went out with a horse with the gun to the horse's head. Shh, just close your eyes, it will all be over soon. That individual's job was over soon as well. That was the last tweet that they sent on behalf of the Houston Rockets. So again, just shows that it's trying to be silly, maybe something they wouldn't necessarily write via text. They felt, that they could write it or display that message via emoji, and it ended up getting them fired. So in highly regulated industries, you may have to take a closer look into the emoji utilization and what your policies are in the workplace. So for example, on Wall Street, you could see any emoji with money might be deemed as promissory. So imagine you get a tweet or a text message from your stockbroker, and the stockbroker writes, "Hey, I've got a hot stock tip. Give me a call so we can discuss." And then a bag of money emoji behind it. Again, maybe not something that they would write promissory text in the text message, but with an emoji they would display it, and that could be deemed as, hey, this is you're promised a great return. So SEC and FINRA may not be very happy with that utilization and that sort of promissory message to a potential client, and we might have some issues there. So in highly regulated industries, you got to take a closer look at the emoji keyboard and really restrict which ones are utilized. So you get yourself into some regulatory hot water. A new article came out actually last month regarding public health, and I thought it was interesting, especially and timely with all the news on the coronavirus and the advice to wash hands more regularly. So they're saying emojis in public health and how they might be used for hand hygiene and infection prevention and control. And really a big part of this is overcoming the language barrier hurdle. Right? Everyone understands emoji. Is emoji now a universal language? And I know different countries, there might be an emoji might mean a different thing, but in general, if everyone takes a look at emoji and like this, it's a hand clap and a soap, people are like, oh, I need to wash my hands. There's other, DNA strands and needles for like shots. There's a lot of new emoji now in the medical profession. And so how could those potentially be utilized to improve public health and help public health officials get their message across to prevent the spread of disease and keep people healthy? Ethics, it's important for attorneys to understand ethics. This one's an obvious one, but there was a Nevada attorney who was creating burner accounts, Twitter burner accounts. And when there'd be a witness that was going to be providing testimony against her clients, to at them from one of these Twitter accounts with a rat emoji to intimidate those witnesses and maybe get them to not provide that testimony. So not a good thing. This attorney also had other issues with sneaking cell phones into clients, into jails and things of that nature. So wasn't the first time she's been in trouble with the ethics committee. But not a good thing to do. Don't at somebody with a rat emoji that's going to provide testimony in a case that you're about to try. So secondary means, we talked about the challenge of just knowing maybe what the standard Urban Dictionary meaning and utilization of an emoji. Well, secondary meanings can really emerge quickly. And in this case, Lizzo tweeted, "I am peach emoji, MENT." And all of a sudden, the peach emoji became a symbol of an anti-Trump movement. So now actually probably had the peach emoji now has 3 meanings. So just very quickly with one tweet from someone that has hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of followers, you can see it got 121,000 likes. It has more than that today. 20,000, more than 20,000 people talking about it. And just like that, revolution took off, and now you have a new meaning for a certain emoji. So you might think you have a full understanding. It's always good to see what context is being utilized in a specific period of time. And as you can see, end of September of 2019, you kind of understand the context of this emoji. Additionally, this like okay, hands up, has become a symbol for some white supremacists. So you might be tweeting something that just, hey, it's okay. You think it's harmless, but somebody else might understand the white supremacist meaning of that, and that could get you in trouble because I guess looks like a potential W with the 3 fingers and then a P with the circle. Not really sure how they got to that, but people get creative, and these can definitely have those types of meanings, get you in trouble or at least accused of something that you weren't trying to convey that type of a message. One way this is a great article to take a look at what some of these emojis are mean out there in terms of bullying, trafficking, just inappropriate language. Facebook's content moderators are looking for these types of different strings of emojis and what they mean out there in the real world. So there's a lot of them, as you can see, multiple strings, and they've created their own language out there, and it's important to understand what that might mean if you're doing an investigation. So we'll get a little more into case law now. Eric Goldman, he is a professor at Santa Clara University School of Law, and he really is an emoji law expert and writes a lot about emoji law and IP rights and great stuff to check out. I'd highly recommend reading his blogs. But he's done some research regarding the utilization of emojis or references in court cases. So as you can see, it's exponentially grown over the past few years. Still not maybe as high as as we would think, but it makes sense. Sometimes the court's a little bit behind as these cases get into trial. So I think we'll continue to see this trend over the next few years. Also, what are the most litigated emojis? The smiley was the most litigated, but gotta be careful with that, as some courts, how many different smile faces are there amongst the emojis? So a lot of the smiley face emojis get grouped into the one smiley. You have the winky, sad face, gun, kiss face, laughing face, tongue sticking out. These are the more utilized emojis, so not surprising, these are the ones showing up in court case references the most. So case law from Israel, this is an interesting one, pretty popular one. Here is the actual emoji string that signaled intent. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail. Basically what happened was a landlord was trying to rent out his apartment, having a text exchange with another individual. This was a text that conveyed great optimism, and so he took the house off market to be rented and then lost a month's worth of revenue because they never actually went through with renting the apartment. So what the judge said was that the emoji-laden text message sent by defendant 2 on June 5th, 2016 was accompanied by quite a few symbols as mentioned. These include a smiley, a bottle of champagne, dancing figures, and more. These icons convey great optimism. Although this message did not constitute a binding contract between the parties, this message naturally led to the plaintiff's great reliance on the defendant's desire to rent his apartment. So previously we went through some emojis that were strung together that actually had a meaning. That's not the case here. If you were the jury having to review this emoji pictograph and this string, you can say it's very positive. It'd be hard to say it was negative with dancing and the peace sign and the bottle of champagne. Definitely conveys a positive celebratory tone. People ask about the chipmunk. One of my colleagues said that maybe it's chipmunk finding a nut, like someone trying to find an apartment or a home. I think another reason why the chipmunk might have come up there, and actually Eric Goldman did some research on that, which was interesting and made sense, is we all have our favorite emojis. So when you go to your emoji keyboard and text message, you have your favorite emojis or your most utilized emojis, so they show up there to the left. So maybe that was one of the emojis that was used a lot by this individual, the text, and so they just threw it in there and it just kind of got lumped into the rest of the celebratory emojis. So another way when you're doing an investigation is what are their most used emojis, and maybe that's why a random emoji got thrown into the string. Some more case law. Apatow v. Munich. There was an employee that was on leave because they had an asthma condition. The doctor thought that it might be the air at the work and wanted the individual to stay away from the workplace to see if that improved their health. There was a tip that this individual was doing some yard work, moving from house to house or residence to residence, and they did an investigation, hired a PI, and that tip, it was true. This person was out doing some physical work. The employee was actually following the recommendation from the doctor that doing some exercise could potentially also assist with their asthma condition and assist with their health. And this employee was following that doctor's recommendation. So when the lawsuit came up, the employer had the honest mistake defense. They didn't know that the employee was following the doctor's recommendation. Had they known that, they would not have terminated. Our fault, honest mistake, we didn't know. Problem with that is internal email with smiley face, emoticons, and explanation points. Again, we talk about appropriate places to use emoji. When you're terminating somebody or talking about a termination or any sort of HR investigation, probably not a proper place or professional forum for utilizing emoticons or emoji. So this is what the text was. Smiley, did a great chat with you about Elena. Yes, he did. Thank you for your help. That deserves a big smiley face emoticon, 3 exclamation marks. So that correspondence was not favorable in court at all. United States versus Ulbricht, the Silk Road trial. This was emoji and emoticons were omitted from transcripts of online chats. They would just say emoji in parentheses or emoticon. The defense wanted those to actually be viewed. Honorable Catherine B. Forrest ruled that emoji and emoticons are part of the evidence of the document and stated in the ruling that the jury should read them. They are meant to be read. The jury should note the punctuation in emoticons. And emoticons and emojis in a lot of court contexts are used synonymously. So I agree with this. I think this is, reading out a transcript in court and then you would just say smiley emoji. For one, you might use the wrong smiley. You may not know how to properly define the emoji that you're reading out. Really meant to be read. And that was how the communication strings are. It's a text with an emoji that's meant to put emotion into the text and maybe change what the message means. And the jury should be able to read them and then come to their conclusion on what the meaning of that was. So hopefully this is good case law where we don't necessarily need a certified translation of an emoji, where we can actually just let the jury read and decide. United States versus Wesley. So the court addressed a probable cause for a warrant to search Facebook accounts. There's an ATF agent that provided an affidavit stating that public-facing posts, so public-facing Facebook posts they were able to see, included a cloud emoji that referenced drugs, and the gas emoji was a symbol for gangs. Again, if you didn't know this ATF agent knew some of the street lingo and the street, emoji lingo in terms of gangs, and so he understood what the messages actually were trying to convey and utilized his expertise to get that probable cause warrant. And the court denied the motion to suppress the evidence from the Facebook accounts. So it did stand. Again, actually understanding and not just taking, what's the cloud emoji, what's the gas emoji, understanding what those mean in that context allowed him to get that probable cause warrant and move forward with the arrest. So there's Eric Goldman, Emoji Law Revolution, as we see discussed earlier, that J-curve, that bar chart that showed the amount of cases now that reference emojis. Further, he discusses the lack of technology. So, you look at like a Westlaw, a Lexis, they still don't have the ability to display emojis. And there's a lot of technology that's behind, and we'll talk about eDiscovery technology next. So even though the court opinions referencing emojis is growing, that the publication process is still behind. There probably is a lot more. They're just hard to search for or find. So as technology evolves, I think you'll see more and more references to emoji and then the greater ability to be able to search for that as well. So talk about eDiscovery technology. In the past, there really wasn't technology that was able to properly capture emoji. Just recently, last year, Celebrite added to their technology package to where when you do a phone collection, it will capture the emoji. And if you have the right text package, you can review that in Excel and even do searches and search on specific emoji in Excel, which is great because you can actually, if there is a emoji that is relevant to the case and you want to find all chats that actually have that emoji, you can easily run that search and find all those messages that contain it. Additionally, like Relativity has a short message application that allows display and search of emoji. So all these different technology providers are now starting to catch up so you can ingest and review and search on emoji. I think one challenge still is with some artificial intelligence algorithms. Are they able to, actually depict and change the tone of a message with emoji in them? I think to date, it just goes off the text, but I could see in the future those algorithms being updated and they're able to actually understand emoji and be able to cluster and group documents appropriately. So it'll be interesting to see as technology continues to grow at an exponential rate where this actually goes. But I can only see the tools getting better. They're not perfect yet. They're still in their infancy, but it's better than what we had. Prior to this, it was really more of a manual effort. As you saw in the beginning of the presentation with the handicap emoji email, I still wonder how many documents out there were collected, were reviewed, were produced without the corresponding emoji in the message, and how that message may have been conveyed to that document differently had those emojis been displayed. No one did this on purpose, just unknowingly, but we'll get to at the end as a takeaway, I think it's very important as part of the custodial interview process to understand how emojis might be used and relevant in the matter, and understand which ones and how they're used in that specific workplace and what they mean. Certain organizations have emojis that mean certain things, and it's important to have that sort of dictionary to understand and see, hey, do I need to search for these types of emojis for our case and review those documents? Or if the custodian says, yeah, we use emojis all the time, this is how they're used for this certain case or for this certain project, you could search for those. I mean, I can't even imagine if, and this can happen now that people are using emoji as language, what if a project, instead of having a project name as text, the project name was actually an emoji? So imagine having to find all documents now that contain that emoji in it that reference that project, because that's the name of the project. It's an emoji itself. So something to think about maybe before allowing that to happen is, hey, if we had an issue, would we be able to properly identify all those documents? And information governance, utilization policies of emoji, really important. So with all those questions, should we use emojis in the workplace? We have emojis, is emoji, is it emoji? Wall Street Journal article says, yes, you actually should be using emojis at work. Found some interesting statistics in this article. On Slack, they have 26 million custom emojis that have been created since the feature was introduced. And for the 13 million daily active users in Slack, in Teams, emoji is basically universal. So you have Slack, you've got Teams, we'll get to that in a minute. You have messaging apps where emojis are utilized, so another place that are rich with emojis. And their CTO said they had one corporate customer that uses more than 50,000 custom emojis. So I can't imagine the effort to have to review a document population that had 50,000 custom emojis. Again, do they have a reference document that states how they're used and what those meanings are in their specific context? Custom emojis are a whole nother challenge. In Slack, you can create them. You can create them with a picture, and you create your own little emoji and personalized emoji, which is fun. It's good for employee engagement. But does that cause issues when you're going to have to go search? Again, do people now create their own little language, and do you fully understand it when searching documents? Are there, trade secrets or inappropriate communications happening in places that they shouldn't happen, but they're in emoji pictographs or custom emoji that are made that can make it hard to comply with those types of policies? So real important to understand how they're used, maybe minimize the dictionary, minimize which emojis can be utilized at work, so you can do a proper review and identify the document in your universe. So good article by Keller Twigger on Slack, the new email. Say email is slowly dying. So I know email has now been a rich source of where, it's easy to go collect email and review it, and we've been very good at that. But now there's all these new data sources, and you've got Teams that's being utilized. Yammer, Skype might be going away and replaced by Teams. There's other applications that are not just rich in emoji, but rich with important documents, and it's really important to understand how those are used and how to collect that evidence and review it for a case. So I thought this was fun. We'll go through this briefly in terms of Records and Information Management Month of Fun. Texas put this one together, and just shows again how emojis can be used in a document retention policy. So as long as administratively available, fiscal year end. I think until supersede is probably my favorite. Permanent document. After close of a trigger event. And I think that's an interesting one with the iOS version of the gun. That definitely caused some issues when Apple changed the gun to a squirt gun, so it wasn't so threatening. But then other platforms had not changed theirs, and it was just a normal gun. So you might be, sending someone a message with a squirt gun, and someone gets a pistol and feel threatened. So again, careful when you're sending out some of these emojis. Calendar year end, champagne and the fireworks. Life of the asset, and then we got litigation, public information request, and audit. So a couple of takeaways as we discussed using emoji in the workplace. Providing some sort of awareness. I think emojis are great. There are articles out there that do state that people that use emojis may be deemed to be less competent than others. That may change over time. There's some, it depends on the age group of who, when they're conducting those types of surveys. There's also surveys that state that employee engagement is higher by being able to utilize emojis at work. There's another study that showed that the key word is proper, utilization of emoji can enhance your negotiating power in online negotiations, especially in international negotiations. And maybe that's just because there's some emotion along with the text and not just the text itself, and that emotional connection allows you to negotiate better. So taking away that and taking away employee engagement, probably not what you want to do. Just need to provide some awareness and limit what's used, because some people may not understand what they're conveying in a message because they don't know what all the emojis mean. So just limit. If you don't know what an emoji means, maybe don't send it, and you're better off. So these ones on the left here may be okay for work. The thumbs up one, I'm still on the fence about. You got to be careful again on how the thumbs up is being utilized. Be interested to see one day if it's litigated in court that a thumbs up emoji signaled a contract acceptance, whether it was via email or via text. Someone could rely. We talk about great reliance. I would never rely on a thumbs up emoji for a contract, but somebody else might. And there might be an email that clearly states, are we good to go with, here's the contract, please let me know if you want to move forward. I know this is time sensitive. Give me your okay. And they fire back a thumbs up emoji. Boom. Are you now in contract? I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to debate that, but it's something to think about and be careful how that's used. Not just someone saying, hey, can I leave early today, and you give a thumbs up. That shouldn't be a big deal. But when it comes to contracts, it could be challenging. Ones on the right, probably never used at work, could be definitely inappropriate and cause some harassment challenges. So we discussed about this briefly, custodial interviews. This is just imperative to add this to part of your custodial interview process. There's different platforms now for communication that we discussed, Slack, Teams. Are they using text? Are they using WhatsApp? I mean, we've seen some organizations now that didn't have much email, and all their communication was via text. So that happens. Where are the channels of communication, and then are emojis used? And if so, how? What do they mean in your workplace? How are they utilized in your workplace? Do you have special meanings or emojis that have a defined meaning? Could be for a celebratory. I think Starbucks has a few where if it's great customer service, there's a certain emoji for that. I think that's great because it's well defined and there's only 9 or 10 of them, but 50,000 can get a little bit out of hand. So real important to ask in custodial interviews what messages streams are using, where is communication taking place, and is emoji being used and how? And if so, work with your eDiscovery expert to find out what's the best strategy for collecting this evidence for review. This is a great article from Zendesk. I really like this in terms of drafting an emoji policy. So we talked about limiting how they're used and educating and providing awareness to employees. Which emojis are we going to use in the business communication and which ones are off limits? Pretty simple. And if you can limit that keyboard, that emoji keyboard, that'll help with that compliance. What forms of communication are good for emojis and which ones should be emoji free? Anything to deal with HR, any type of investigation, termination, write-up, definitely should not be emoji. There should be no emojis in those types of communications. Extremely inappropriate and unprofessional. Contracts, another place, emojis should not exist. Who's responsible for using emojis on social media? Which emoji will they use, and for which type of posts? Again, there's lots of studies out there that emoji is great for marketing. It builds that emotional connection. People are attracted to those types of messages. That's great, but make sure you're not, shooting a horse like what happened with the Houston Rockets marketing professional that put that tweet out there. So which ones are appropriate? How are we going to use them? What type of message are we conveying? What geographical audience is this going to be sent to? Because if it's global, you might need to see what that emoji might mean in a different country. So you have to be aware of that. When is an emoji an acceptable substitute for a word? When is it not? So again, consider some sort of glossary, cheat sheets so people know. A lot of people just don't have an understanding of what the emoji means. They send out a message that they think to be completely innocent, and then somebody else receives that message and feels like they're being harassed, threatened, etc. And then customer service as well. I think, you talk about all those chats that are out there now with customer service. Oh, we can do a live chat. When is emoji appropriate? Emoji might be great to build that emotional connection with that customer. It's just making sure you keep it simple, and just a smiley face, and limit what you use and how and when they're used. So with that, I did want to spend some time on any questions. I hope that you guys found that information helpful and useful. Mike, are there any questions out there?
No, Matt, we don't have any questions at this time. I'm a little disappointed in our audience today. So anybody who wants to submit questions can use the Q&A widget down below. In the meantime, I wrote a post yesterday, Matt, about how emojis might be designed to foil eDiscovery processes. What's your take on that?
I mean, it absolutely could be. Like I mentioned in the case where you had a project named Emoji, and maybe you didn't, in a custodial interview, you weren't honest, you didn't come clean about that, and no one found it, and thus you're able to hide documents that weren't really easily searched or didn't hit on search terms. Additionally, you could do your own custom ones, which could be challenging. So yeah, you could have your own. You could create your own little emoji string of 2 or 3 emojis that means something specific to you and another individual when you're maybe conducting some non-compliant activity or within your organization, similar to like the Blue Dog contract in the Enron matter, right? Instead of using 2 words, you could use 2 emojis.
All right, looks like, oh, well, we just got a couple of questions in. Question 1, Matt, can you view emojis in native files?
You should be able to, as long as you have the right text to be able to display. And so, for example, there's an emoji, if you look like in Excel, for example, now there's an emoji pack in terms of, there's Calibri, there's Arial, and now there's emoji. So you can actually view them in there. And that allows you, if you do a text or a cell phone collection, now you'll grab those emojis and you can actually run a full search. So you can view them and search them. They don't look as great as they do, like displayed on your iMessage app or whatever, but at least you can still view them. The challenge I see that I'm still trying to do some research and investigation on is with the custom emojis. How are those displayed? You may actually need to go back to the native form or the actual message itself to view those. So I'm working on that to see how all the custom emojis, as you saw, the 50,000 in one organization had in the Slack, how does a collection work with that?
All right, great. Another question and another definition required, or not a definition, but a pronunciation. Do GIFs or GIFs, depending upon your take on it, do they warrant the same kind of precautions that emoji, that you talk about regarding emoji?
I would say so. We gotta be careful with how those are used. Exactly, GIFs, and then also memes, because memes become problematic also in eDiscovery because the text isn't very searchable. So it's hard to search on what a meme might be. So yeah, GIFs, memes, it's a challenge. So probably another question to add to your custodial interview is, are those utilized also in workplace communications, and how? Because I think they could present a similar issue as emojis. It's a great question, great comment.
Yeah. And just to break things up a little bit, one of our attendees observed that there are no emojis in the Q&A widget. So you can't ask questions.
You have to get on that as an upgrade.
We'll talk to the platform about that. Does Relativity show emojis in the preview pane, or do you have to see them, or do you have to see it in native format? I imagine when you're looking at the viewer.
I think in the short messaging application, it does display them in the viewer, and it allows you to search on them. But we're actively doing some research on that now, investigation on how it works. Again, it's a newer technology, so we want to actually make sure we well vet it out and see how it works. So I don't have a clear answer on that, but from the short messaging application, in my understanding, you can see it in that short message viewer and then run searches on that as well and find hits of, hey, where is the the I heart emoji, where all those show up and what messages are conveyed there. And if someone's using it as a secret, like you said earlier, trying to hide documents in the secret term, why do we have all these, pig emojis? What does that mean? Maybe it has a different meaning. And so all of a sudden you're like, man, that's a lot of pig emojis. That must mean something. And you can dig into those documents.
Cool. So any thoughts on the emoji that has movement? So how's that different from emoji that don't have movement?
Like the emojis where you can pick an emoji and speak and send a voice message. Yeah, that's another one that I'm looking into as well. That more challenges. Instead of sending a emoji or a message or a voicemail, imagine sending it via an emoji. We continue to create awesome technology, but it's going to create challenges also with compliance at work and how you utilize it in workplace communications and then in discovery and investigations. And as I mentioned before, I guess my biggest concern about that is how liberal are people when they're making these types of comments. I mean, there was a individual, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, in the state of Utah. She sent in a bomb threat via text. She had no-showed, called in sick, no-showed for work, was worried about being fired, and so she wanted to get the attention away from herself. So she used a Text Now app to text in a bomb threat with the purple devil emoji, bomb emoji, and explosion emoji. And they easily went to the Text Now application and found that the account was hers, so it was pretty easy to trace down and find. But she felt comfortable sending it that way, a bomb threat, versus even making a phone call in, using a Text Now app to text it in. So what are people going to say via an emoji versus they might not say elsewise?
Good stuff. Great. No more questions, Matt. If anyone has any questions, now's your chance. We've got a few more minutes. Pop them into the Q&A widget, and we'll get to them. We do have a comment, though. Certainly, this is certainly a new frontier. No question, but this was so interesting is the comment. Wait, we got another question just came in. Any take on Bitmojis? Wonder if you have any comments regarding those and how those are used.
I mean, I think it's very similar. I mean, they all pose that same issue. I mean, because now you have, I think Starbucks has their own emoji keyboard. I think Kim Kardashian had her own emoji keyboard. There's some IP litigation surrounding that as well. You got Bitmojis. I mean, it's a new way of communicating, and technology is going to have to catch up to understand what they all mean and be able to capture them and review them in an appropriate and effective manner. So yeah, it's another great question. I think that's a big takeaway here for any attorneys, anyone in the e-discovery space, is to understand that this issue could exist, find out if it is relevant in their matter, and then don't take an emoji for granted. Understand that, hey, this might actually mean something. This might actually have a different meaning, and understand that, and use tools like Twitter for like an urban dictionary or ask a colleague to find out if that does have any type of secondary meaning.
Great. Thanks, Matt. All right, we don't have anything else. You got any closing thoughts?
No, those basically were them. I mean, I think it's continue to evolve. I think stay updated. I'll try to continue to put stuff on LinkedIn and Twitter, and as information continues to change, as there's more case law out there, as technology catches up, as best practices for how to deal this. But please add this to your custodial interview process to ensure that you're not embarrassed in court because the document was not collected properly, and produces the document in a different fashion with a whole different meaning. So be prepared.
Great presentation today, Matt. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the ACEDS webinar channel. Thank you to Matt and, of course, our partner, Rico, for a great and novel presentation today. Haven't seen anything like this in a while. And thanks to our webinar producer, Deja Miller. Please visit aceds.org for a complete list of our upcoming webinars. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.